Hi, friends, and welcome back to our series of Holy Week reflections. I am so happy that you are joining us again today. It is Wednesday, and we are somehow in the middle of Holy Week. Today, I want to shift gears a little bit and start off with a disclaimer. And that disclaimer is that I am about to be really honest with you. And the reason that I am being completely transparent is because so many of you over the past couple of weeks have been very courageous and very strong in admitting to me how you're really doing in the middle of all of this, the good and the bad and the ugly. So here's how it's truly all going for me. It is really difficult to be in the middle of Holy Week, in the middle of a pandemic. In the past, when life has been more or less normal, whatever that normal might be for you, the biggest concerns about Holy Week for those of us who are in various kinds of ministry positions is, the busyness and getting everything done, and admittedly, also wanting to make sure that we are doing justice to the Good Friday piece in this story without jumping from the Palm Sunday parade to the celebration of Easter resurrection. Because the Sunday resurrection doesn't make sense without the death of Friday. Reverend Kurt uses the phrase spiritual hyperglycemia as the result of going from Palm Sunday to Easter. And this phrase is something I relentlessly make fun of him for, which, truthfully, he's completely right in this description, and it's a great one. But do not tell him that I said it. I will deny that. So normally, we have this sense of the Christian journey not being all parades and light and resurrection, but that there are also times of sorrow and despair, and we need to embrace that to fully embrace the whole story. But for those of us who aren't used to living in fearful or uncertain times, for those of us who are unsure about medical, social, economic concerns, and these are all at the forefront of our current realities that we're living right now. Quite frankly, I think our times have quite enough despair, fear, uncertainty, and angst. And as your minister, who just so happens to also be a mental health professional, I'm looking at the Holy Week scriptures for today and tomorrow and Friday, and some of them, as you know, are just so heavy. So here's what we're going to do. The scripture reading, the lectionary story for today, will come at the end of the reflection. A little backwards, I know. And the scripture reading again is found in John's Gospel, and it's the story of Judas betraying Jesus. Now, the very last thing that I want to do, again being completely transparent, is to take all of our minds and hearts and spirits down to a dark and winding sort of place. What I will say is that when we think about betrayal, whether that is by another person, by our own selves, maybe even by our bodies, it's because what we expected, how we believe things are, how we believe things should be, those things that we think go without saying. Suddenly, that's not the case. And it leaves us feeling like we've had the rug ripped out from under our feet. I think betrayal at its most basic sense is that experience of what we thought was a sure thing ended up not being, and we were left with this overwhelming sense of sadness and disappointment. I think it's fair to say that many of us have that exact sense right now in the world. And it ranges from suddenly not having a job and a paycheck coming in, or not being able to visit our parents or our grandkids, or even a thought of, we're in Canada. What do you mean I can't just go sit in my favorite cafe and have a cup of coffee? Almost like there's this sense that our own very lives have been betrayed in some way. Now we're all just left with our own socially distanced selves to sort out our feelings about the situation. And I cannot even count the number of times that I've heard questions and statements over the last couple of weeks that sound like these, and maybe you'll find some of them relatable. I'm having a lot of trouble sleeping lately. I know I'm doing okay. I have everything I need, but I still have this angsty feeling that isn't really going away. Am I normal? Is it weird that I'm looking out at everything that's going on around me, but I'm feeling fine? Does that make me a bad person? Or, I'm good, my kids are good, but I'm finding myself constantly worried about what it's going to be like in the future after all of this. Maybe some of these questions and these statements are some that you've had yourself. I would like to say this for whatever it might be worth to you. What we are dealing with right now, as we all know, is a global pandemic. Anxiety and angst are completely normal, and feeling calm and secure when we do have basic safety is also completely normal. Some people are just chilling, learning languages, doing puzzles, checking in with their friends and family over Facebook and FaceTime or email or the phone. Others of us are finding it hard to get out of bed, feeling fearful or completely shut down. Whatever you are experiencing is what you are experiencing. I read this thing, and admittedly it was on Facebook, but I still thought it was valuable for myself, and maybe it will be for you. We can look at it like this. We are all in the same boat, but we may all be experiencing different weather on that boat. So some of us are just watching the rain showers from the safety of our cabins, snug and warm and drinking tea, and we have all we need. Others are outside in the middle of a hurricane, struggling to hold on, and the rest are somewhere in between, and maybe sometimes dry and warm, sometimes in the middle of the storm. One explanation, and it's certainly not the only one, but one explanation for what's happening is that we are all creatures with a nervous system that is perceiving a threat that is out there. And we all, depending on our personalities, depending on what's happened in our lives, depending on how many supports we might have, depending on our own sense of connection and support from others, all of these things affect how our bodies, our minds, and our spirits are going to be responding to what's happening around us right now. Some of us in our community appear to fall under the description of, when the going gets tough, the tough get going. And their response to all of this is to take action, to gather supplies, to do all the research they can, to make sure they're prepared, to wash their hands again. And this is how they're coping, consciously or unconsciously, with what's happening out there. Some people have a basic sense of safety, so they're able to engage socially, although distantly. They're reaching out to others. They're making sure their friends and family have everything that they need. They're continuing that connection. For some, social isolation can feel like an empowered step. It's something that we're doing, a choice we're intentionally making. And for others, it can feel like imprisonment. And they might begin to feel really depressed or really irritable or have this sense of just giving up. So friends, whatever it is that you might be feeling, it is valid and normal that you're feeling that way, whatever it is for you. Wherever we fall on the spectrum, though, here is the important part for us to remember. Others' experience may not be the same experience that we're having. So we are all experiencing this thing that is happening around us, but we're not all having the same experience of it. Some of us are doing just fine. Some of us are struggling. Which comes back to the difficulty of being in the middle of Holy Week, in the middle of this pandemic. We all know it is not business as usual. Holy Week has never looked like this before. There are some of us, though, that find comfort in hearing the Holy Week stories each day just as they are, because even the heavy ones are normal to hear at this time of year, this week of the Christian calendar. And so it might give, for some of us, a sense of comforting familiarity. And there are some of us for whom the heaviness of Holy Week and the stories of this week is just too much with what's happening in our lives right now. And myself and Kurt and the staff of our church want to be very sensitive to that. So here's what the rest of the week is going to look like. Tomorrow, we will hear the lectionary story for the day, followed by a beautiful, beautiful poem written by my dear friend, the Reverend Mel Malton, from her book, Seek It Like Silver. On Friday, we're going to have a short reflection and a prayer, and then we'll do the lectionary reading for the day for those who want to hear the Good Friday story in its fullness. And then we'll wait in anticipation and hope for the good news of Sunday morning that Kurt will share with us this year. So that is it for our Wednesday reflection. If you would like to hear the lectionary story for this week, just hang in there for another 30 seconds. And if you think, I'm good, if you think this story is a little too heavy for my heart today, feel free to stop right here. With many, many blessings on the rest of your day. Take care of yourself, and we will see you tomorrow. Now, for those of us who would like to share in the hearing of our story today, if you would like to follow along, again, we are in John's Gospel, and this time we are at chapter 13, starting with verse 21. After he had said this, Jesus was troubled in spirit and testified, I tell you the truth, one of you is going to betray me. His disciples stared at one another, at a loss to know which of them he meant. One of them, the disciple whom Jesus loved, was reclining next to him. Simon Peter motioned to this disciple and said, Ask him which one he means. Leaning back against Jesus, he asked him, Lord, who is it? Jesus answered, It is the one to whom I give this piece of bread when I have dipped it in the dish. Then, dipping the piece of bread, he gave it to Judas Iscariot, son of Simon. As soon as Judas took the bread, Satan entered him. What you are about to do quickly, Jesus told him. No one at the meal understood why Jesus said this to him. Since Judas had charge of the money, Some thought Jesus was telling him to go and buy what was needed for the feast, or to give something to the poor. As soon as Judas had taken the bread, he went out, and it was night. When he had gone, Jesus said, "Now is the Son of Man glorified, and God is glorified in him. If God is glorified in him, God will glorify the Son in himself, and will glorify him at once." Friends, here ends the reading, and I look forward to seeing you all tomorrow. Take care and have a great day.